Close to where we were, they're distinct looking cars, so we knew exactly what car it was. Just doing numerous donuts, just hooning it up a storm.
Tim Sullivan is a regular fisher at the beach and saw yesterday's accident unfold.
The police were around yesterday, we saw them twice over the day, so they were patrolling. But you can miss them easy enough because you can see so far down the beach when there's any police. And then as we're leaving the beach, a big kerfuffle, and lo and behold, it was the very same car, and obviously somebody was dead.
Tim was back today, disappointed to find the vehicle entrance blocked and with a security guard on deck.
It's ridiculous. It's just a knee-jerk reaction. I ask you this, how many drownings have there been in the last 6 months? I think there's been about 5 at Muriwai Beach. Are you allowed to fish there? Do you swim there every day? Everybody does exactly that.
Auckland Council's Scott De Silva accompanied Ngāti Whātua o Kaipara members to the site of the accident today. A rāhui has been put in place.
It's usually a reasonably standard process, and we support mana whenua in that regard. They're supporting council in terms of the rāhui to make sure that there's a sort of safety over the beach over this time.
Jonathan Tevenard is a regular surfer at Muriwai, and he wants to see more control over vehicles on the beach.
You know, it's like Mad Max up there sometimes. If you drive up the beach looking for a wave, and then just here comes all the tradies. So it's like 20 trucks right up the beach all showing off to each other. I mean, I think sooner or later there's going to be an accident.
However, he says a permanent ban may not be so simple.
It is awesome when you can drive your four-wheel drive up the beach and go and look for a wave and park up and go fishing, and I think that's like an important part of New Zealand culture as well. So it's also trying to find that balance.
Locals say the beach can get extremely busy on the weekend, but with it being so expansive, it's uncommon that 2 cars will come across each other. While the council says that car access to beaches is an ongoing conversation, these locals and regulars of the beach want it outright banned, not just for the safety of people, but for the protection of all beach wildlife.
Well, any vehicle driving on a beach kills whatever's underneath it on the sand. So when you have complete saturation of the vehicles, you've killed everything along that strip of beach.
Graham Lowther says the solution is obvious.
Well, there's only one option, and that's this complete ban. Turn it into a sanctuary, turn it into a park, a national park. I mean, we're meant to share these areas with creatures, not kill them.
Auckland Council says there have been several similar incidents to yesterday's accident in recent years, including in 2015 when 4 people were killed.
And if you were listening to that report on radio, you can check out the video version. It will be on our webpage. We are joined now by Auckland Council's Regional Parks Principal Specialist, Stephen Bell. Kia ora, Stephen.
Kia ora, Lisa. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Can you tell us any more about what actually happened in the incident?
No, look, the matter's being looked at by police, so we'll leave any comment in relation to the events to them.
OK. Is it time to ban driving on the beach?
Certainly there's a very strong call from some aspects of the community to ban vehicles on beaches. Be mindful that the impact of vehicles on beaches at Middle is not just solely felt at Muriwai. You know, we have Kariatahi in Auckland, and there are beaches in the Kaipara area and far north and elsewhere in the country where driver behaviour on the beaches is certainly less than desirable. It's a bit of an issue everywhere.
What kind of behaviour have you seen this summer?
I haven't necessarily been out to the beach myself this summer, but certainly historically we have seen, people riding in trays. We've seen vehicles doing donuts. We've seen vehicles in sand dunes, excess speed, basically passing very, very close and to pedestrians and other beach users, unregistered, unwarranted. I'd call it dangerous driving in the least. Certainly some have been reckless driving.
What would it take to implement a ban? Can you do that? When I say you, I mean the council. Could the council go ahead and do that?
Access to Muriwai Beach there are several access points. One's controlled by Auckland Council, the other's controlled by Auckland Transport. So collectively, if Council and Transport decided to impose or close vehicle access to the beach, yes, they could. But as I think one of your other speakers I heard say, there is a group of people who use the beach because they are driving up to fish and or surf and or kite surf. And there are a group of people who are driving up the beach because it's an awful lot of fun and they just want to drive fast and drive on the sand. The first group tend to drive responsibly. The second group tend not to.
So what more can be done about that, Stephen, if not a ban? Because obviously there are parts of that beach where drivers can go up to 60 kilometres an hour. So is it time to lower that speed across the board?
Well, lower the speed limit. The speed limit on the beach is 30 kilometres an hour until you get to the Okiritoto stream, in which case it then goes to 60. We've had anecdotal reports of vehicles travelling well in excess of 100 kilometres an hour on that beach. In fact, I've had one report several years ago now, vehicles travelling up to and possibly in excess of 140. So the speed limits are there. They're ignored. Enforcement and a tighter set of rules, enforceable rules by central government, looking at control of beaches at a national level consistently, rather than leaving it up to the councils on a case-by-case basis, would be a good start.
Right, so you'd like government to step in, Stephen. That would be the best response.
I would like government to ensure that the rules around driving on beaches had teeth and were enforceable much more simply than they are now.
So what kind of teeth? Are you talking about punishments or what?
I'm talking about infringement notices to registered owners of vehicles. I'm talking about greater decision-making, in terms of paper road access to a beach, for example, the ability of councils to close access to the beach a little more simply if they are unformed legal road entry points.
So is council going to have some conversations with government about this?
Well, that's a matter for others in our organisation. Certainly it's something I believe we should be doing.
Okay, so you do temporarily close the beach over certain periods of time. So over the New Year's to mid-January, the beach was supposed to be closed. So you do it sometimes. Why not more frequently over, say, for example, the peak of summer when it's super busy?
Yeah, that could be done. One of the challenges, again, comes down to the multiple entry points. Auckland Council can control and make decisions about closing the entry point through the regional parkland. That's relatively simply done. Another entry point is via an unformed legal road. That's a little more complicated, and that's a decision-making structure that's gone through by Auckland Transport. Through the summer period, we tend to close for a number of reasons. One of the core reasons is obviously the beach has got a lot more people on it. There's a lot more holiday use of the environment, but also the fire risk in that area is pretty high. It does get even higher, but around New Year's, people tend to celebrate. They want to go camping. They've got time off. We have illegal camping up the beach. We have illegal fires up the beach, and fire is a really significant risk for the forest beside us, as well as the environment of the beach itself.
So, Stephen, whose job is it to police the rules? Is it the police, or is it council officers, or a combination?
Combination of the two. In terms of enforcing the transport regulations, that's the police. It's a role that sits with them on the road corridors. It's a role that sits with them on the beach, because under the Transport Act, the beach is classified as a road, although it is not a road that anybody takes to go to and from work or that sort of thing. But you need to have a warrant, you need to have a driver's license, you need to be registered, you need to follow the rules.
So is it realistic, though, to expect the police to put the resources into doing that when you say it isn't a road to work, it isn't a road to the shops? It's a recreational area. I mean, are there simply the resources to keep an eye on these behaviours and police them properly?
Well, we get a huge amount of support from police, and police provide as much support as they are able to, given that they have a much broader set of societal responsibilities than just policing poor behaviour on a beach. They do the best they can with the resources they have, and quite frankly, should we be putting a lot more resource into people who simply can't control themselves? Don't know. I think the answer is no, logically. But
you need a permit, right, to drive on beaches where it's allowed. And there's an online process. It seems like everyone can get one, can't they? So what's the point of the permit?
The point of the permit is driving a vehicle on the beach in the Auckland region is a prohibited activity unless you have a permit. The permit gives you the authority to drive on the beach. We have been looking and continue to look at giving some effect to those permits. So some form of control point which will not let you pass without a permit. We're a little way off having something like that in place, but certainly we had a decision from our governing body last council term that certainly authorise us to go down and see if we could make that happen.
So Stephen, do you accept right now? Do you accept right now that that's a box ticking exercise? Those permits.
On the face of it, yes, it looks like it.
So, given that you have the authority now to pursue that, are you going to change that process, the permitting process, to make it more meaningful?
We're endeavouring to do that at the moment.
Do you have a timeline for that, Stephen?
No, I do not.
Okay. So, where to from here?
Hell of a question.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, anybody who is driving on Muriwai Beach or any other beach will simply follow the rules. If they don't, clearly council and any other organisation controlling that particular beach will have to look at whether they enable continued access to that beach. Now, that's a conversation that will obviously spark up a bit of public input. But if people cannot control themselves and we don't have the tools to be able to manage what's going on the beach, really there's not a lot of options left but to shut it. If we look at environmental impact, vehicles are doing a huge amount of environmental damage. I can only speak for Muriwai, both to the dune system behind the beach itself, and the invertebrate and other populations that live on the beach. So if you were looking purely environmentally, it's a no-brainer. You'd have no vehicles on it.
Really appreciate your time, Stephen. Thank you for speaking with us. That is Stephen Bell, who is Auckland Council's Regional Parks Principal Specialist. Really interested in your thoughts on this one. Should driving on the beach be banned altogether? Do there need to be harsher penalties? Let us know your thoughts, 2101 on text, or you can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ. 20 minutes after 5, kia amo tunu mai. Do stay with us. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. Parts of the country have again been sizzling in super hot weather, with some areas tipping over 30 degrees. Met Service has issued heat alerts for 18 towns and cities, all the way from Kaitaia to Blenheim, after days of sustained high temperatures. But some good news for those struggling with the sweltering heat. Things should cool down from tomorrow. Finn Blackwell has more.
Desperate to beat the heat, these Aucklanders flocked to Takapuna Beach on the North Shore today, where temperatures reached a scorching 29.7 degrees. Valeria Machen says the sea is the only place to be on a day like this.
Yeah, we definitely come here to get in the water and so we can deal with the heat.
Jan Wallace has been pulling out all the stops in order to stay cool.
Putting the air conditioner on really cold and sitting in a cold room and jumping in a cold shower. Only way to cope.
Beachgoer David Spencer says the heat has led to restless nights.
You usually get a fan running if I find it most difficult, but so I've kept a fan running then, and I've been getting sleep that way.
But it's the perfect time to get outdoors.
I've been outside a lot more. It's not exactly the sort of weather you stay at home cooped up with work or with schoolwork, the sort of things you have to get out and do something.
Another surefire way to cool down, ice cream. And sure enough, Ben Scher from Tip Top says they've seen a bump in sales this summer.
We've seen over the last couple of weeks some record sales volumes on some of our key summer products like Fruit Dew and Popsicle. The sun's been shining and the weather's been really hot.
Met Service meteorologist Claire O'Connor says the heat hasn't been confined to any particular region.
A couple of places have seen their hottest day so far this year, as well as this summer. Particularly, we're feeling it in the capital, with our station in Calvin reached 27.5 degrees yesterday, which is its hottest temperature since 2019.
Some good news for those struggling with the heat. Cooler temperatures are on the way.
It is coming to a brief respite, with a cold front approaching with cold southwesterlies, and that is going to be moving up the country from tomorrow Tuesday across the North Island Wednesday.
A welcome relief to many across the country.
And it is 22 minutes after 5. A little later in the program, we'll talk to a sleep expert. If you're one of the people struggling to get your snooze in at night, she may have some tips for you. You are with Checkpoint on RNZ National. And homai o whakaaro, we would love your feedback on anything you've heard on the program this evening. Let us know whether you think there should be a blanket ban on driving on beaches. Why or why not? 2101 on text. You can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ. And our email address, checkpoints@rnz.co.nz. Time to go to the headlines now. Ane Amarama, mena pitipita kōrero.
Thank you, Lisa. Auckland Council's Regional Parks Principal Specialist has told Checkpoint the government needs to ensure the rules around driving on beaches have teeth. Stephen Bell was speaking after yesterday's fatal crash on Muriwai Beach on Auckland's west coast. Muriwai Community Association co-chair Claire Bradley says there's almost unanimous local support for closing the beach to vehicles. But Tim Sullivan, a regular fisher, says one tragic event should not lead to closure for everybody. The hot weather has been a boon for ice cream maker Tip Top, which reports record sales. Some parts of the country, such as Kawerau, have seen 30-degree temperatures, but Met Service says the days will get cooler from tomorrow. Meanwhile, the entire Wairarapa region will be under a fire ban from 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Fire and Emergencies Philip Sole says there have been multiple vegetation fires recently, with hot, dry and windy weather expected. The race to be the US Republican Party's presidential candidate is now down to Donald Trump and former US Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has today pulled out and given his backing to former President Mr. Trump. And Trade Minister Todd McLeay will travel to Geneva tomorrow to prepare for his stint as Vice Chair of the World Trade Organization. But Mr. McLeay will also visit the United Arab Emirates, where the organization's ministerial conference will be held later this year, and meet his UAE counterpart to discuss bilateral trade. It's 5:25.
Thank you, Marama. New Zealand golfer Lydia Ko has shaken off a tough 2023 to get back into the winner's circle at the season-opening LPGA event in Florida. Ko had a two-shot victory at the Tournament of Champions, holding off an American teenager for her first win on the tour in 14 months. We're joined now by sports reporter Felicity Reid. How important was this win for Ko, Felicity?
Well, it was a relatively easy victory, and it will be a bit of a confidence boost for the 26-year-old. She is, holding off that teenager coming through. She's been somebody who's been exceptional at the start of her career, but last year was not really a year for her. So she 20 starts in the LPGA last year, no wins at all. So coming in this year, the first one out, getting a win, it was her 20th win as well. And it was on what she now calls her home course of Lake Nona in Orlando, just down the road for her. So there's a little bit of pressure there as well. She said there wasn't too many nerves, but some of the club members were coming out to cheer her on. So nice to win in front of them as well. And so she's kind of getting closer to one of her career goals now, because this was the 20th LPGA win, and so she needs 27 points to get into the Hall of Fame. So how that works is that in a regular LPGA win, you get 1 point for each tournament win. So she's getting closer. So she's only 1 point away. And many people would have thought that last year she would have been getting into this Hall of Fame. It's something that's been a big part of her career. And after quite a good 2022, we watched her become number 1 in the world. She won 3 tournaments. She was also named Player of the Year. But it really just wasn't to be last year. And in her own words, it kind of her tournament and her whole season went sideways even though she won that first one. So she couldn't carry on that form, but now she's saying that after winning again for the first time, this is what she has to say about chasing the Hall of Fame this season.
I'm literally right in front of the door. I think my mindset was, hey, I'm going to do all the things I can do and try and do a good job of that. And if it happens, it happens. If not, it's just not meant to be mine to be in the Hall of Fame. And to have myself a better chance of it now, after winning this week is definitely really cool, but hopefully nothing changes internally where I'm not going to get too crazy about what may happen, and just try and play continuously some solid golf and see where that puts me.
So that was her 28th victory since turning professional in 2012, and the 10th year that she's actually won an event. So after watching last season, it'll be interesting to see what happens next to her. The Hall of Fame, that elusive 1 point that she needs, could come as quickly as next week. She's another tournament reasonably close to home, 2 hours drive away in Bradentown. That's where her next opportunity will come for that.
No pressure. Okay, let's move on to the Silver Ferns. They've recorded their first win of the Nations Cup.
Yes, a 5-goal win over Uganda this morning in London got them on the board for the first time at this 4-team tournament. First up, they had quite a hefty loss to Australia, a 13-goal loss. So today, coach Dame Nolene Toroa sort of mixed up the squad a little bit. She had coming in at... it was mainly mid-courting that was changed. So it was Michaela Sokolic-Beechin, first time in 5 years that she's played international netball. She's coming back off 2 Achilles injuries. She also, Kate Heffernan, who has been named the on-court captain for this tournament, started at wing defence. Her twin sister Georgia was in the goal shooting circle, getting just her second game in the black dress. But she was one of the players that actually kept New Zealand in this game. She got 12 of her 13 attempts at goal, which was great. And also coming Grace Wicki, one of those shooters that we hear a lot about and has really stood up again. She got 53 of her 54 attempts, so really keeping New Zealand in what could have been a real shock for them, because this is Uganda's first time playing in a tournament like this. They got the opportunity to play against these top nations in a series following where they finished at the last World Cup, so they finished 5th there. It's opened up some doors for them and maybe shaken up some of these top nations who aren't used to playing a team like this, quite used to the other teams in this competition, Australia and England. So the Silver Ferns play their final game of the tournament of the pool play of the tournament against England on Sunday. The winner of that game goes through to the final.
Thank you, Felicity. That's our sports reporter, Felicity Reid. Let's return now to our story about weather extremes. If you are in one of the hotspots, literally, getting a good night's sleep may be a bit of a challenge. So to help turn the nightmare around, we're joined by University of Otago sleep researcher, Professor Barbara Galland. Kia ora, Professor.
Kia ora, Lisa.
How much of an influence is temperature on getting a good night's sleep?
Oh, it has a huge influence on sleep. First of all, just trying to get to sleep in these hot temperatures is really difficult. But also waking up a lot during the night, so your whole sleep cycles get disrupted. Many have a lot less sleep and a lot of disrupted sleep, and then potentially crankiness the next day for a lot of people. So it has quite a lot of influence, and then so you really have to pay attention to a lot of things to actually cool your body temperature down overnight.
I want to get to those things that you can do, but first off, is there a sweet spot for temperature? What's the best kind of temperature to be sleeping in?
Yeah, the sleep spot is around about 18 degrees. It can vary for different people, but the research shows anything between 15.6 and 19.4, to be exact, is what most people can regulate their temperature at. So with these really hot nights, it's really quite difficult to be able to keep those temperatures down to be able to sleep well.
Right, so for those overachievers who would like to get into that range despite the air temperature, what can we do?
Oh, there's lots of things we can do. A lot of them are just really common sense things. Like during the day, it's incredibly hot, really staying hydrated, drinking lots of water, because that can actually really help with your body temperature regulation overnight. Thinking about what you're wearing overnight, dressing lightly, but it has to be something comfortable for you. You might have the correct sort of PJs, whether they're comfortable, are they short PJs or whatever your preference is. But in trying to get rid of that body temperature, if possible, is key to that. Then also
sheets,
paying
Barbara?
attention to people. Sheets as well, yeah. So the overbedding, thinking about that, it might just be that you're comfortable sleeping with a single sheet. Some people can't sleep without a sheet on them, so just a really light cotton sheet. You don't want to have all your duvets. The main thing is really to also really make sure your head and face are clear, because you get rid of a lot of body temperature through the face and head.
So does the thread count of the sheets matter?
It can matter, so you don't want something really, really tight in terms of the thread count. I don't know exactly what the optimum would be, but the sheets need to be able to breathe, if you like, and get rid of that body temperature through them. So the fabric is actually quite important for that, to be able to dissipate your body heat.
Should you have a cold shower before you go to bed?
I have been lately, yes, because I'm in Wanaka at the moment and it's been incredibly hot. So I'll often sort of certainly around about 8 o'clock at night, if it's really, really hot, I'll have a cold shower to just calm myself down. That can really help with sleep.
I'm also interested in what you eat before you go to bed. I imagine it's not of great benefit to be chowing down on, a big scoop of hot chips or something before you hit the hay. Does food just before bedtime make a difference?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure about in terms of really hot temperatures, but at any stage, any time temperature, you don't want to be eating too much before you go to bed at night that will keep you awake. So it's really about hydration and water, and not too much alcohol too, because that can really make you dehydrated.
Barbara, I've just had a question from the floor here, which is people want to know, what is the lifespan of a pillow when you get, when you're really sweaty and all the rest of it? Because I imagine it has some kind of effect on your ability to sleep as well. How long should we be keeping our pillows for?
I'm not entirely, I don't have an answer to that exactly, but, from a hygienic point of view, you want to look at the colour of your pillow too underneath in terms of, the moisture that's got through to it, how they can get quite yellow. But thinking about actually what's covering that pillow is really important. I'm here talking about heat dissipation. So you might have your favourite.
What should your pillowcase be made of?
Well, a cotton, some sort of fabric that will actually, or silk will actually, won't keep the temperature in. So lots of people might have those velvet pillowcases, their favourites, but not over summertime. And then thinking about the underbedding too, some people may still have their woolen under blanket on the bedding from wintertime. So taking those things off, just strategies to really allow you to keep cool overnight.
Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Barbara. That's Professor Barbara Gallant, who is a sleep researcher from the University at Otago. I'm really interested in your feedback on this one. 2101 on text. How are you going getting to sleep in those high temperatures? Got any tricks that you could pass on? It is 25 minutes away from 6. Kia amo tonu mai. Do stay with us. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. It is time for the business news now. Ko taku hoa e nai ko Nona Peltier. Nona is here in the studio. Okay, Nona, let's talk about vehicle theft. Right, 43% spike in vehicle theft.
That's just from the AMI database, never mind all of the insurers.
What's going on?
Well, turns out people do steal vehicles in large numbers, and they even have a list of the top 10. And there's an awful lot of repeat vehicles in there. Partly because they're low-cost vehicles, older vehicles, ones without security systems.
Right.
Even just a basic security system can help protect your car. Also, the insurer is saying it depends on where you park it as well.
I was surprised by some of these, though, because isn't the top pinched car Aquas,
yes,
right?
A Toyota.
And they're relatively new models in the scheme of things?
Well, new, but not with those features. It's the older ones.
Right.
I mean, I'm guessing. I don't know what the new ones have in store, but newer vehicles do tend to have more security features, but older vehicles not so much. So even just a plain old security bar on your steering wheel could be
like a clampy thing that you put on the steering wheel.
Yes,
Gotcha.
that could definitely be of help. But also where you park it. That makes a big difference. So if it's in your driveway or in your garage, it's better than if it's in a dark alley in the middle of nowhere. So because once car thieves learn to steal a certain kind of vehicle, they'll continue to do so. So this particular vehicle that topped the list, the Toyota Aqua, topped the list for the second year in a row. So there you go.
It's a very economic car by all accounts, so that might be part of it.
And anyways, on our website you can find a complete list of the top 10. Also, about a third of all vehicles are stolen from the Auckland region.
Right, wow. I suppose we've got lots of cars here to choose from.
Yeah.
Okay, asking price for a house fell for the first time in a decade last year.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
Okay, so these are asking prices. These are not necessarily the prices that people pay. So the asking prices were down a total of all asking prices, which is not really a meaningful number, but it does give you an indication that, one, we had fewer listings, and two, the asking prices were down overall 23%.
Wow.
That's substantial. And that meant that there were fewer listings, of course, but also the asking price for the houses that were available for sale was also down. And overall, the national average asking price fell. So this is just the price, the average price was down 6.6% to $895,289. And that compares with the year before, $959,000. Now, that's a difference of 6.6%. And that's the first time in a decade where we've seen any kind of drop like that from the year earlier.
And what about the markets, Nona?
Yeah, the markets are, well, it's a little bit quiet because, of course, we have Wellington on holiday today. And so the top 50 index had ended up 19 points to 11,685. And the New Zealand dollar so this is my first day back from the holidays. And so I've noticed a drop. It's 61.2 US cents and 92.7 Australian cents. 48.2 British pence, and a lot of that is because of the US dollar and people betting whether or not the US Federal Reserve will cut interest rates sooner or later.
Thank you, Nona. Ka kite, Nona Peltier there with business news. Almost 20 to 6. Let's get to some of your feedback now. A few of you getting in touch about driving on beaches. This listener says those of us who were not born in New Zealand cannot understand why on earth anyone would be allowed to drive on a beach. It is completely bizarre. Vehicles on a beach seems absolutely counterintuitive, they say. Another listener says beaches, dunes and riverbeds are home to indigenous species. Driving threatens and disrespects the mana of those who were here before us. And a lot of you getting in touch about sleeping, trying to go to sleep in some of these hot nights. A listener is recommending a towel over the pillow and on the top of the bottom sheet because it's easy to wash, because our sleep expert was saying, when they start to go yellow, that means you've had them a bit long. But I reckon that would make you hot, wouldn't it, having a towel? Anyway, another says window open and breeze blowing through. Well, what do you do about the mosquitoes? I feel like there's a plague of them in Auckland. Love your tips on getting rid of those. And another says keep your room as cool as possible. Pull your drapes or blinds during the day. Do keep your feedback coming. 2101 on text. Homai o whakaro, as I said, keep your feedback coming, 2101 on text. Tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ or the email address checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. It's time to go to the headlines now. Ko marama anō tēnei.
Whakawhitai Lassie. Thank you, Lisa. A 3-day rāhui has been placed along Muriwai Beach west of Auckland after a young person died and 2 others were injured when a vehicle rolled yesterday afternoon. Auckland Council's Stephen Bell says speed limits are regularly ignored at Muriwai and central government could help with enforcing a national set of rules. A 47-year-old man has appeared in court in Canterbury after a fatal crash last week. Susan Johnson was killed in the 2-vehicle crash at Castle Hill along State Highway 73's West Coast Road on January the 14th, whilst Ian Johnson was among several others who were injured. The man is facing careless driving charges. The remains of a pod of 40 dolphins euthanised in Hawke's Bay will be studied to try to learn more about their stranding. The pod of false killer whales and bottlenose dolphins stranded at Taylor's Bay near Mahia yesterday, then stranded again at an inaccessible reef point not long after being refloated. Department of Conservation Operations Manager Matt Tong said the samples are important because not a lot is known about false killer whales. Meanwhile, a month-long fishing ban is coming into force off the French Atlantic coast. It's aimed at protecting dolphins. And communists have gathered in Moscow's Red Square to mark the centenary of the death of Vladimir Lenin, founder of the Soviet Union. President Putin hasn't commented, but has previously blamed Lenin for dividing the Russian Empire into republics such as Ukraine. The time is 18 minutes to 6. We'll have more news on the way at 6 o'clock.
Kia ora rā e hoa. The SPCA is slashing its adoption fees to ease pressure on its packed animal shelters. From next week, adoptions will be half price, whether it's a kitten, puppy, pony or porker. Nationwide, the SPCA has more than 4,000 animals in its care, and last year it got harder to find them forever homes. And joining us now from the SPCA is Dr. Corey Regeneris-Cal. Kia ora.
Kia ora, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How come you've got so many animals at the moment?
That's a great question. I think we're trying to figure that out ourselves as well. But what we can probably put a finger on is that times are just under a bit of pressure at the moment between cost of living and everybody's individual circumstances. Not everybody's ready to decide to make that choice to get a new pet for their home.
What does that mean for the animals if you're near capacity? Are you having to euthanise more of them?
It's a good question, and where we're at is always trying to manage the intake and the outgoing. So we've got a managed entry procedure that we try to look at in order to really make sure that we're looking after the most vulnerable, sick and injured animals that are coming into our care. So there are times and places when the animals that do come into our care might need to be euthanized based on the conditions that they present in.
Yeah, that must be really tough.
It is. It's not an easy job for any of the team. It's always a constant battle of trying to make sure that everybody's looked after as well as the animals as well.
Yeah, so adoption fees. Talk to me about this. You're cutting them to half price, isn't it? For what period of time, and what's your reasoning with that?
Yeah, so we've got an adoption campaign running at the moment from the 27th of Jan to 4th of February. And what that is half price across all of our adoptions, like you mentioned before, about any species that we have. And we've got a variety of them that are there. It's really about trying to give those the opportunity who might have been considering getting a pet and just going, I'm not quite sure if I want to take that step to get an animal. We've got all the costs covered for you already. So they've had the veterinary treatment, they're microchipped, they're vaccinated, they're fleed, they're wormed, and they're ready to go to the new homes.
So, Corey, can you give me a bit of an idea? If you're taking on a kitten, what is the cost of that, and maybe a puppy?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it varies a lot kind of under individual circumstances. But the good thing is that with the vaccine series kind of covered already, that's a majority of the vet bills that you normally get when you're getting a brand new puppy or a kitten. And then the main ongoing expense is just making sure you're feeding them a high quality diet and looking after them. So that can be a few $100s a year to keep the feed up to scratch. And then their annual vet vaccines and visits, which will vary depending on the practice that you see.
But in terms of the price, the adoption fee that you pay to the SPCA, what will those be in the discount deal?
Yeah, great question. So it depends on the species and also sometimes the age. So depending on if it's puppies or kittens, or if it's an older cat and dog, because we've got plenty of older dogs and cats that get overlooked regularly as well because the puppies and kittens are so cute. They all have slightly different price structures and ranges, which are available on our website. But for example, if it's an animal that's under 6 months, a dog under 6 months of age, it would normally be $300. So it's $150 for the adoption fee.
On doing a half-price adoption fees, it sort of sounds, well, it could be counterintuitive because don't you want to check that people can afford to have a pet in some way?
Absolutely. So the only thing that changes with our half-price adoption is just the fee itself. So we still go through all the same consultation process with those wanting adoptive parents to make sure that we can partner them up with the right pet. Part of that's really talking about what the home environment looks like, making sure that we've considered everything in that aspect, because some animals don't do well in multi-animal households. So we want to make sure that the animals are getting the right match and the best chance to have their forever home, as well as we have conversations about what does financing look like? Do they have any other conditions that we might need to consider, and still walk through that process. So it's not a guarantee adoption, I guess, if you like, from that side, where we really want to make sure that we're partnering these pets up with the right owners for their forever home from here in.
And who have you got there available for adoption? I mean, what kind of species have you got? Not just run-of-the-mill cats and dogs, as I understand it.
No, we've got a bit of everything. So we actually tend to have a lot of rabbits and guinea pigs at this time of the year as well. We do have some horses that are up for adoptions. There's some sheep, some goats, and even a couple pigs that are bouncing around the country as well.
Wow, something for everyone. Guinea pigs. The Prime Minister says guinea pigs are his favourite animals. Maybe you should flick him a text.
We should.
A social
Perfect.
media message.
We should. That'd be great.
What about foster homes or temporary homes? Are you looking for people who would love a pet but they can't really take one on full time?
Absolutely. I mean, with the 4,000 animals that are, just over 4,000 animals that are currently in our care, we couldn't do that without the foster families that we have. We just don't have the capacity in the centres to hold all those animals. And we also know that it's not the best environment for them as well. So we want them to be out in loving households. So if you don't think that you can afford an animal at this time that you want to commit to in the long term, you can always get in touch with us about fostering too. So all of the medical care and their feed and everything is all included in that by SPCA covering it. So there isn't actually a cost to you other than the dedication, the time and the love that they need.
Really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us and best of luck. That is the SPCA's Dr. Corey Regneris-Cal there. So looking for foster homes as well as people who would want to adopt a pet. Coromandel business owners are hailing what they say is the best summer in a decade after 2 years of COVID and its lifeline highway washed away in last year's summer storms. It's been a disruptive few years. But with the road rebuilt, the people have returned, filling shops, restaurants and accommodation, pumping life back into the area. Louise Tanuth reports.
For a year, the Coromandel community has had to cope without the vital link connecting one side of the peninsula from Kopu to Hikuai together. For the business community, that meant catastrophic losses of over $90 million in trading. But since December, a bridge has finally stitched things back together and business is booming once again.
Probably the best season I've had in 10 years of being on the water here. So good here at the moment.
Ken Hindmarsh owns Cathedral Cove Cruises and he's also on the board of the Whitianga Business Association and the treasurer of the Mercury Bay Business Association. He says visitor numbers to the Coromandel are finally picking up.
I probably took more people in the first 8 days of January than I took in the whole of January last year.
Forward bookings for February are looking strong with plenty of international tourists set to visit. Many have already been this month.
I had Swiss and South Africans on the boat today, and we've had Czechoslovakia and all over the world stuff.
Now the new bridge is open, they've also had more visitors travelling through for day trips, shaving plenty of time off their journeys. In Tairua, Marie Smith can't keep up with the demand at her clothing store Get It On.
I've had to take on 3 staff to give you an idea. We're open 7 days. I'm struggling to keep up with stock, and that's not a bad position to be in. Tourists coming in, people that haven't been here all year for their batches. I mean, it's tenfold. It's incredible.
But before she could find staff, she had to recruit her husband.
He had to don on one of our fabulous New Zealand-made men's shirts and come and work his magic. And in fact, I've got him in store tomorrow because we've got a very big day. I've got 20 women coming in after hours for their own in-store party, and he'll be serving them a glass of bubbles or orange juice and helping me out.
Manager of the Pawanui Pines Lodge, Carol Williams, says restoring State Highway 25A has been vital for holiday makers on the road.
It's like, wow, you're there already. Everybody's really pleased that that road is open, that they don't have to go the long way up the top. And even the internationals, they're pleased that it's taking time off their journeys, especially if they're coming down from Pai here to us. It's a long way anyway.
This summer is purely just catching up. Financially, they're still behind on last year. She says there were many times they thought they wouldn't make it through.
Well, I don't think we had anyone staying here for weeks. We had no one, so it was like, no business.
This time they've been fully booked up until the first few weeks of this month, and their 18 units are almost full for next summer too.
I think I've only got 2 units available next summer for the Christmas, New Year time. Everyone's just pre-booked ahead.
Many hopeful this will set the tone for the foreseeable future.
Louise Tanuth reporting there, 9 minutes away from 6. Kia amo tonu mai. Do stay with us. You're listening to Checkpoint on RNZ National. The Australian federal government appears to be preparing to release a new package to deal with the stubbornly high cost of living. Labor MPs have been recalled to Canberra for a party room meeting on Wednesday as the government tries to show voters it's tackling one of their top concerns. The ABC's Oliver Gordon reports.
As the Albanese government canvasses new measures to cut the cost of living, Melbourne resident Paul's got a few ideas.
They should reduce regulations, cut taxes and stop government spending, reduce government spending. That's the best way.
Juggling a toddler, fellow Melburnian Aaron just wants action.
Definitely with the weekly grocery shopping, that's quite expensive. Especially with you, you eat quite a lot, don't you? So yeah, I think that's would go a long way for us.
Aaron's partner, Amanda, says the family is struggling to keep up.
Interest rates, just everything. So help anywhere would be greatly appreciated.
Power bills and petrol prices are top priorities too.
Where we live, we have to drive a lot, so a tank doesn't go very far. So that would definitely help too.
Federal Labor MPs have been called back to Canberra nearly 2 weeks early to discuss ways to ease cost of living pressures on households and businesses. Treasury has been asked to provide advice on ways to do that without adding to inflation, although it's not clear exactly what measures will be discussed at the Wednesday caucus meeting. The CEO of the Australian Council of Social Service, Cassandra Goldie, is hoping any new measures target low-income earners.
Our latest survey confirmed that about 90% of people on income support are in housing stress and about 3/4 are skipping meals. So the cost of living crisis is very serious.
And she's repeated her call for Labor to scrap the planned Stage 3 tax cuts, which will mean everyone earning between $45,000 and $200,000 will pay 30% tax.
If you're going to spend about $20 billion per year, there are much better ways that you should be targeting that expenditure than delivering $9,000 extra assistance to people on $200,000 and more.
It's not just households looking for relief. Luke Achterstraat is the CEO of the Council of Small Business Organisations.
43% of small businesses in Australia are not actually breaking even. Certainly would be encouraging government to look at some energy relief, potentially look at reducing the fuel excise as well.
And he has a few other ideas.
Looking at the insurance sector as well. Obviously promoting better competition. We welcome the government's commitment to have a look at the grocery industry, for example, but there are other things the Commonwealth can start doing, perhaps starting a conversation with various states and territories about payroll tax. Payroll tax is really inconsistent between different jurisdictions in Australia, and it's a tax on jobs.
And he says the time to act is now.
We can't waste any time here. We need quick, effective and fast policies that reduce the cost of doing business, particularly for small business, in what's going to be one of the most challenging years on record for small businesses in Australia.
Okay, confession time. I've had the odd parking ticket, and I bet you have too, but can you imagine racking up $17,000 worth of them in just 6 months and then taking, about 8 years to pay them off? That is the expensive lesson learnt by former Auckland resident Todd Fisher, who played parking roulette and lost. Todd Fisher joins us now. Hi, Todd.
Kia ora, Lisa.
Kia ora. I believe congratulations is in order because you've finally paid off your parking tab. Is that right?
I have finally paid them. It's been a glorious week.
Yeah, tell me about that. Do you feel free now?
Yeah, I do actually. It's amazing to get that extra bit of cash back in my paycheck. I got to the point where I was paying about $100 back a fortnight. So really good to just get that little extra back,
How did it get so bad, Todd?
Well, I was kind of like you guys, playing car park roulette, and basically I was parking in Ponsonby, just off St Mary's Bay Road, and there was a car park there that was a 90-minute limit, and if you went over that, you got a $65 ticket, and if you didn't pay that within 5 days, it became $85. And I was stuck in meetings, I was just a bit busy, and I kind of got a ticket every day, and then it just escalated from there.
Sounds like you were doing your best ostrich impersonation, Todd, pretending it wasn't happening.
Yeah, it was, I thought, a future Todd problem, actually.
And when did you realise the supersized nature of said parking tickets?
Well, yeah, this is quite bad. But when the footwell of my back seat was full of parking tickets, I thought, I need to deal with this. So I called up expecting to have just under $5,000 worth of fines. And even then, I wasn't proud, wasn't happy about it. But the lady on the other end of the phone said to me, look, it's 15,000 and counting. They're coming in every single day.
I would have thrown up into my sneakers at that point, Todd. What was your reaction?
Well, I pretty much said, cool, I'll call you back when I know how to deal with this. Hung up and just burst into tears because I was on a low wage, didn't know what I was doing with my money, and that really threw me off. But then we got to the final, ticket coming through, and it was around 17,000, and then I set up a payment plan, and we went from there.
I understand your mum gave you a talking to as well. Get you know what together, Todd.
She confiscated my car off me for about a month, and I had to either Uber or bus to work. That wasn't a fun time, but I guess it stopped me getting into more trouble because
it's cheaper than an $85 ticket, Todd.
Yeah, it is. You're bang on there. But I also didn't have a warrant or rego for a little bit, and I mean this is going back quite a few years, so I was just a bit naive, and I was getting $400 tickets a day on top of that. So it was not good.
How do people react when this comes up? in casual conversation?
Well, most people think I mean 1,700. They're like, oh, you're just adding GST, you're just adding an extra zero. I'm like, no, genuinely, 17,000. The people are quite shocked. And to be honest, I'm shocked that I'm at this point and I've paid them all off because it's a huge sum of money.
You know, some people will be thinking, oh my God, you're a complete idiot about it, Todd.
Yeah, they will. But hey, there's always a silver lining, and I've learned something.
Okay, what have you learned? Because we'd like to share in the lesson.
I take this into every day. Eat the frog is what I live by. If something's causing you an issue, deal with it as soon as it arises. Then it doesn't snowball and become a bigger issue. Deal with it as it's happening.
So, your parking ticket lesson, are you applying that to other aspects of your life? Are you telling me that paying off over 8 years $17,000 has taught you a really valuable lesson?
Absolutely. I take it into every day. When I get to work and if there's something that's on my mind that I'm a bit nervous about or slightly stressed about, I'll deal with it then and there, and I know that my whole day will be so much better because of it.
Do you pay for parking now, Todd?
Yeah, I do. And if I get a fine, and I do still tend to get the odd one if I'm parking somewhere and go slightly over time, I pay it instantly.
So you're a former Aucklander now, isn't that the case? You live somewhere else?
Yeah, I live in Christchurch now,
Okay. Is that part of the reason you moved out? Parking in Christchurch is cheaper?
Way cheaper, yeah.
Oh, you're a good sport, Todd. Hey, thank you very much for talking to us and congratulations on finally paying off what is the biggest car parking tab I have ever heard of, $17,000. Your confessions, please, on text 2101. How many parking tickets have you rung up? What kind of value? You can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ or you can email checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. I think quite a valuable life lesson there from Todd. Deal with it straight away. Eat the frog, as he puts it. Some of your feedback coming through here. Cold water bottle, says someone, is to help with sleeping. What, to drink the cold water? To use it on your forehead? Not sure. Another person says, people have laughed at me for holding onto my waterbed, which I only tend to sleep in during the summertime, because I can turn the temperature down and it's lovely and cool. A couple of things there. Cannot believe you were confessing on national radio that you still have a waterbed. Every year I tell myself I'll get rid of it, but when you get temperatures like this, I'm so pleased I haven't. That is interesting. So they do have a purpose still. One hot night in Oz, I soaked a bath towel in cold water and finally fell asleep under that.
RNZ News at 6. Good evening, I'm Marama Tipole. The Commerce Commission has launched investigations into the country's two big supermarket chains. The Commission has confirmed that it's looking at Woolworths and Foodstuffs, which operates New World and Pack and Save, among others. The watchdog says the focus of the investigations, which are in the early stages, is to consider whether certain pricing and promotional practices of the parties comply with the Fair Trading Act. An Auckland Council park specialist says central government needs to step in to ensure that rules around beach driving are properly enforced. Yesterday, a young person was killed at Muriwai Beach in West Auckland after a vehicle rolled. Cars can go up to 60 kilometres an hour on parts of that beach, which is often packed with people over summer. Auckland Council Stephen Bell says speed limits are regularly ignored at Muriwai and central government could help with enforcing a national set of rules.
I would like government to ensure that the rules around driving on beaches had teeth and were enforceable much more simply than they are now.
Stephen Bell wants to see infringement notices for people breaching the rules and for local councils to be able to more easily close vehicle access to the beach. A Coromandel business owner says this summer is the best they've had in a decade. After 2 years of COVID and its lifeline highway washed away in last year's summer storms, it's been a disruptive few years. But with State Highway 25A now rebuilt, Cathedral Cove Cruises owner Ken Hindmarsh says business is booming.
I probably took more people in the first 8 days of January than I took in the whole of January last year.
Forward bookings for February are looking strong, with plenty of international tourists set to visit. Met Service says the country is in for a break from the heat as temperatures look to drop later this week. It's been a warmer summer period this year, with some places, like Wellington, reaching nearly 30 degrees. Meteorologist Claire O'Connor says cooler temperatures are on the way.
It is coming to a brief respite with a cold front approaching with cold southwesterlies, and that is going to be moving up the country from tomorrow, Tuesday, across the North Island Wednesday.
Claire O'Connor says overnight temperatures are expected to drop by half. Meanwhile, a fire ban will be in place for the entire Wairarapa region from tomorrow. Last week, a fire ban was declared for the Wairarapa coast, but hot, dry and windy weather has led to an extension of the ban. The shift to a prohibited fire season at 8 a.m. means no open-air fires are allowed and all fire permits are revoked. Fire and Emergencies Philip Soul says there have been multiple vegetation fires in Wairarapa recently. Activities that pose a fire risk, such as lawn mowing, welding or driving through long grass are banned. The Department of Conservation says iwi are now planning the next stage for the remains of a pod of 40 dolphins euthanised in Hawke's Bay. The pod of false killer whales and bottlenose dolphins stranded at Taylor's Bay near Mahia yesterday, then stranded again at an inaccessible reef point not long after being refloated. Conservation Department Operations Manager Matt Tong says samples have been collected today from the pod to help build understanding about whale and dolphin populations in New Zealand waters. Doc says why strandings occur is not fully known, but factors can include sickness or navigational error. The former US President Donald Trump and the one-time UN Ambassador Nikki Haley are the two remaining contenders for the Republican presidential nomination after the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis withdrew. These people in New Hampshire, where tomorrow's primary takes place, gave their reaction.
Very deflated, very upset. This is not good news at all. It's very deflating.
I'm thinking about possibly writing him in, or the other possibility is just maybe RFK. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. I was working pretty hard for him, so it's a shock.
I'm disappointed in the timing of it all. Most candidates want to unite the party. Trump can't unite his own party, let alone the country.
Mr. DeSantis, who has now endorsed Mr. Trump, says he could not ask for ongoing support when he didn't have a clear path to victory. Back home, police are appealing for sightings of a missing Christchurch teenager not seen for nearly a fortnight. 15-year-old Bethany has not been seen since January the 10th when she was at her family home in the suburb of Hei. The teenager left home without any additional clothes, her cell phone or any personal belongings. Police won't reveal the girl's surname because of her age and privacy. Bethany is the second missing person Canterbury Police have expressed concern over today. They're now also appealing to the public for sightings of 43-year-old Mark Wanhala, who has not been seen since Saturday night. And Israeli and Palestinian foreign ministers will meet their EU counterparts later today as the war in Gaza continues. The ABC's Linda Gurin reports.
Israel's Foreign Minister Israel Katz and his Palestinian counterpart Riyad al-Maliki will take part separately in a regular meeting of EU foreign ministers in Brussels, largely devoted to the Middle East. Ahead of the talks, the EU's diplomatic service issued a paper with a possible roadmap to peace in the broader Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The document makes clear one key goal of a peace plan should be the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. But that is something that Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejects, insisting that a Palestinian state would pose existential danger to Israel.
And that's the news.
Kia ora, it's me, Emil Donovan. Hang on. It's supposed to be music. There we go. We've been beavering away over the summer working on a brand new, shiny nights show for 2024. There's a new theme, as you can hear, as well as a smorgasbord of new segments and features, and a nightly quiz at 9 to spark the grey matter. We also want you to be a part of the show. Our lines will always be open, so you can come on and chat a bit about what's going on in your world too. All that and more, starting today from 7 to midnight with me, Emil Donovan, here on RNZ National.
This is RNZ National, funded through New Zealand On Air. Lisa Owen and Checkpoint back in a minute. Right now, let's have a look at that weather. The short forecast from Met Service to midnight Tuesday. Northland, Auckland, Waikato, Coromandel and Bay of Plenty cloudy. Isolated showers, some heavy with possible thunderstorms for a time tomorrow afternoon. For Gisborne and Hawke's Bay, scattered rain clearing this evening. Mainly fine for tomorrow, but scattered showers in the afternoon and evening. Waitomo to Wellington and Wairarapa, including the Central High Country. Also Marlborough and Nelson, fine spells and isolated showers today. Some heavy with thunderstorms inland. Rain for a time tomorrow morning or afternoon with possible thunderstorms, then a few showers. For Bulla, Westland and Fiordland, periods of rain or showers, some heavy, possibly thundery, easing tomorrow afternoon. Now for Canterbury, Otago and Southland, partly cloudy with isolated showers today with possible thunderstorms. Rain with heavy falls for you tomorrow and possible thunderstorms in Canterbury, easing to a few showers later. And finally for the Chatham Islands, periods of rain, possibly heavy, easing tomorrow afternoon. It's coming up to 8 minutes past 6.
Thanks, Marama. You got any outstanding parking tickets that you want to confess to?
I think I've cleared them all. My husband might have a $30 one going through the waterfront tunnel. I will deal with it after listening to, what's the name of the chap you had
Todd.
on? He was brilliant.
A lesson for all of us. Thank you, Marama.
$17,000 one, but worth it. Thank you, Lisa.
And no mai hoki mai, this is Checkpoint, ko Lisa Owen tēnei. Mayors at 2 Wellington councils are hoping to meet with the local government minister to clear up confusion over the capital's water woes. Much of the region moved to water restrictions last week. Local government minister Simeon Brown says he wrote to the Wellington Water Committee last year asking what the councils were doing to address water shortages and leaks. And the reply from the chair and Lower Hutt Mayor, Campbell Barry, did not include input from Wellington City or Upper Hutt City Council. Well, joining us now is Upper Hutt Mayor Wayne Guppy. Kia ora, Wayne. Why didn't you respond to the minister?
Sorry?
Why didn't you respond to the minister?
Oh, well, we actually responded to the draft letter by the deadline, but we were not aware. So we fulfilled the initial requirements, but we weren't aware that the minister required further information and additional reports. So that's why we would. We've got all the information, but we certainly weren't aware of that the additional information was required.
So was his request not clear enough, or where did the confusion come from?
Well, I'm not quite sure. That's one of the issues that I want to be working through too, just why we weren't told. I mean, it seems a bit odd that 2 of the councils knew they had to supply additional information, and Wellington City and Upper Hutt didn't. So I'm not sure whether there's politics being played here or not, but we'll be looking into it.
Wayne, is there a bit of skullduggery going on, do you reckon?
Well, I don't know, but I'd like to get to the bottom of it because the information that the minister has requested, we have, and we will get that to him in the next few days.
What would the motivation be for keeping you in the dark then, if you think
Got no idea. Absolutely got no idea. But if we're going to fix Wellington's waters, we're going to have to be working together as a region, and that doesn't always happen.
Okay, so, well, are you off to a bad foot with the new minister? That doesn't seem to be a great position to be in.
No, not at all. We'll clarify the position and allay any concerns that he may have that he hasn't got that information, and he'll have it all. And we'll clearly be pointing out what we're doing here in Upper Hutt to work our way through these. If the water restrictions get any worse.
They're big concerns to allay, aren't they, Wayne? Nearly, 50% of the water is being wasted through leaks? What do you think?
Well, we have some questions about that. I mean, from the point of view that...
Are you saying it's not true, Wayne?
I'm not saying it's not true. I'm saying I have some questions about it because the methodology has changed from when suddenly we were told we were losing 15% to 20%, and then overnight it's suddenly 50%. So those are issues we've got to work through with Wellington Water. But,
so do you think that estimate, if we can call it that, is inaccurate?
I'm challenging it. Absolutely, we are, because it changed, and certainly the quality of our water infrastructure when Wellington Water took over 5 years ago was in good shape, and so you that's you need to question that because there are significant issues regarding some of the information we get from Wellington Water.
What could explain such a huge disparity from 15% water loss to almost 50%? What do you think the problem is?
We know that. The one thing I have been told is the methodology's been changed. So, but certainly from the point of view,
a change doesn't mean it's inaccurate, though, Wayne. So I just want to be clear.
We need to. I will be asking those questions, and I've been asking those questions for a number of months.
So why aren't you getting an answer?
Well, we are working through that with them now, and again, the emphasis has been on working through the water restrictions in Wellington at the moment and what each of the cities are doing. One of the issues that we have here, that Wellington Water have recently asked for another $1.1 million, and we've conditionally approved that, but we want some reassurance that they can actually deliver on that and requesting some detailed work plans.
How are you going to pay for this?
We have that money. The $1.1 million is there. We've got conditionally approved that. So that's not an issue from the
That's
point
not
of view
going to
of
solve all your problems, though, is it, Wayne?
No, it's not. It's not going to solve. I mean, there are a number of issues that the Wellington region has to work through for water, and one of them is obviously a big capital item, and one of them that we've all agreed to is obviously a new water source. And Wellington's known that for a number of years. Under Dave Fran-Wild in 2010, it was very clear. They bought land for it. It was made very clear then that with the increase in population, by about 2023, Wellington would be needing to bring online another water source. That hasn't happened, and this is where we're at now.
Okay, so Wayne, what's the timeline for plugging the pipes? If you are indeed losing up to 50% of water...
Well, that's part of what Wellington Water have asked for extra money, which we've conditionally approved.
But time frame, Wayne? When are you plugging the leaks?
This is coming for them to making sure that they can deliver, and that is the coming year. That's the extra money they want to help plug those leaks.
Isn't this part of the problem? And the thing that
renewals.
The thing that the minister is writing about is like a tangible plan with some deadlines and goals and markers along the way. That's part of his issue, isn't he, with what he's asking about in his letter? Have you got all your ducks in a row?
And you will be getting all those. You'll be getting the answers. There's no question about that.
By when will you deliver that to him, do you reckon?
Well, in the next 24 hours, he'll be getting that information. We've got all that information for him. And he will lay any fears that he has that why Wellington and Upper Hutt hadn't produced hadn't come back to him in that letter.
And are you going to meet with him face to face?
I will, if I can, for this opportunity, absolutely.
Have you asked for a meeting with him?
I will by tomorrow. We will making sure we could get face to face with them. Absolutely.
Okay, we look forward to hearing how that goes. Thank you for your time. That is Upper Hutt Mayor Wayne Guppy there. It is down to a two-horse race in the bid to win the US Republican Party's nomination for president. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has dropped out of the running. Mr. DeSantis says he doesn't have a clear path to victory, and he's thrown his support behind former President Donald Trump. Mr. Trump and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley will now face off at tomorrow's primary election in New Hampshire. The ABC's Rachel Mealy reports.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was once labelled the future of the Republican Party. Now he says that mantle is Donald Trump's.
I can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign.
Ron DeSantis had a poor showing last week at the first of the Republican Party primaries in Iowa. His withdrawal from the race means the Republican Party now faces a choice between former President Donald Trump and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. Ron DeSantis believes there's no contest.
Trump is superior to the current incumbent, Joe Biden. That is clear. I signed a pledge to support the Republican nominee, and I will honor that pledge. He has my endorsement because we can't go back to the old Republican guard of yesteryear, a repackaged form of warmed-over corporatism that Nikki Haley represents. The days of putting Americans last, of kowtowing to large corporations, of caving to woke ideology are over.
The next primary on the calendar will be held tomorrow in New Hampshire. Nikki Haley heard the news on the hustings.
We just heard that Ron DeSantis has dropped out of the race. It's now one fella and one lady left.
The timing of DeSantis' announcement came as a shock. Many had expected him to stay in the race until he took on Nikki Haley in her home state of South Carolina.
These fellas say this because they want people to believe it. But what's amazing to me is they think they can lie to the American people and the American people are going to believe it. Prove it. Prove one thing that they've said. Prove the fact that Donald Trump says I want to cut Social Security or raise the age. I've never said that. Prove the fact that Donald Trump says I want to raise gas taxes. I've never said that or done that. Prove that Ron DeSantis says that I'm a corporate whatever he says I am. I've never done that.
Scott Jennings is a former special assistant to President George W. Bush and also a Republican commentator on CNN. He sees only one outcome of the primary process.
I suspect Trump's going to win New Hampshire and coast on to the nomination now.
At a rally over the weekend, Donald Trump appeared to confuse Nikki Haley for former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi when he spoke about the insurrection at the Capitol building on January 6th, 2021.
Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers, National Guard, whatever they want. They turned it down.
Haley took the opportunity to question Donald Trump's capacity to take on the presidency once again.
I wasn't in D.C. on January 6th. I had nothing to do with the Capitol. It's things like that. He said multiple times that he ran against President Obama. He didn't run against President Obama. These things happen because guess what? When you're 80, that's what happens. You're just not as sharp as you used to be.
But commentator Scott Jennings says that message isn't cutting through for Republican voters.
So the end of the line has come for DeSantis. It is nearing for Haley. And I think we are, unless something happens to Joe Biden, looking at a rematch of 2020 here in 2024.
It's 18 minutes after 6 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Lots of you getting in touch about the temperature in your part of the Motu. And Glynis and Peter Wood have got in touch. Regular listeners from Hamilton, they say, we are tired of hearing how hot it is for Aucklanders. 29 degrees Celsius. Ha! They have sea breezes and can go for a cool swim in the sea if they choose. Here on the outskirts of the city, for the last 4 hours, we have registered 33 to 34 degrees. No sea breeze. In fact, no breeze. High humidity and no sea to swim in. Regularly, Hamilton registered both as the hottest part of the country. Point taken, Glynis and Peter. This person says, I'm originally from Dunedin and living in Kawerau. Honestly, I'm as red as a beetroot and so sweaty, but I have lost some of my Christmas pudding weight, so not that terrible. Their tip is to have a toner mist spray to keep cool and not break out, and getting one of those eye gel masks and sticking it in the freezer and sitting in front of the freezer door. Thank you for your tips. On Muriwai and whether cars should be banned on the beach, this listener says, we live locally and use Muriwai Beach for surfing, fishing and recreation. I also used to drive north up the beach to find fishing spots, but no more. I don't want to be associated with the 2- and 4-wheel idiots who race up and down the beach and often charge into and up the dunes. I have never seen an attempt to enforce the rules there by any agency. I don't believe that will change and have come to the conclusion that banning all vehicles permanently is not only overdue but essential. Thank you for your feedback, John. North Queensland is on alert again for a second cyclone in as many months. A tropical low in the Coral Sea is likely to become a cyclone tomorrow, possibly crossing the coast between Cairns and Mackay by mid-week. It's got some residents who are still recovering from Cyclone Jasper worried. The ABC's Stephanie Smale reports.
It's only been a month since the deluge delivered in Cyclone Jasper's wake forced Katie Martin, her partner and their 2 children onto their roof. They were rescued by helicopter from their flooded Mount Molloy home northwest of Cairns and are now living in a caravan on a friend's property. Katie Martin says she's watching the path of the next potential cyclone carefully.
Yeah, we're bracing for everything really, because cyclones are just so unpredictable. You just got to be prepared for everything and just taking one day at a time at the moment, because we're sort of just living on survival mode at the moment still.
She's got insurance and repairs are underway on their home, but she's still worried more severe weather could hamper the recovery.
You've got the higher winds on the top of a hill, but then you've got the risk of flooding when you're in the valleys and, down by the creeks and the rivers. So, yeah, it's just a question of waiting and seeing and gauging it. We're watching the predictions carefully, but we also know that there's no certainty. So at any minute, the predictions can change. So, yeah, we're definitely bracing for that. And we're prepared for more damage.
About 350 kilometres south, locals in Townsville are on standby too. Lisa Marie Sampson owns and operates a sailing charter business there, and she's got boats in and out of the water to take care of.
So we'll probably have to get some big cement blocks and tie the boat down to the slipway. But then we've also got 2 yachts in Breakwater Marina.
One of those boats is her home and she'll be sheltering in it.
And if it looks like it's going to be a Category 3, our larger out of those 2, our home, we will go up to Hinchinbrook Island. We'll just stay on board. It's what we always do. People think we're crazy, but in Cyclone Yasi, 7 to 10 boats went up into the channel and they actually all survived. So being in the mangroves is a safe place to be.
The message from local councils between Cairns and Mackay is plan and prepare, but don't panic. Julie Hall is the Mayor of the Whitsunday Shire Council.
Most people in the Whitsundays, they've been through many cyclones before. It's not new to them. They know what to expect. However, there are some new residents to the region. So I ask that, if they do have a neighbour that is new to the region, or they do have a neighbour that's an elderly neighbour, that to just check in on them. And, we're keeping a very close eye on what's going on and listening to the experts, and we'll take their advice. And if we need to activate the Disaster Management Coordinator Centre, we will do so.
The tropical low is expected to intensify over the next day, with modelling showing it's likely to cross the coast midweek.
Staying in Australia, where the New South Wales Premier has been accused of targeting the Islamic community after announcing a review into the state's hate speech laws. The President of the Australian National Imams Council has written to the Premier to express his concerns over the move and says he's considering withdrawing from the Faith Affairs Council. The ABC's Elizabeth Cramsey has more.
With community tensions rising over conflict in the Middle East, the New South Wales government announced a review into hate speech laws. Over the weekend, the Australian National Imams Council president wrote to the Premier with concerns the review would target members of his community. Bilal Raouf is the council's legal advisor.
The concern is that in the reactive way that it is being done, in the rushed way it is being done, it is targeted at certain individuals' incidents in a manner which is not appropriate when one is considering broader legislative reform.
The review, headed by former Supreme Court Chief Justice Tom Bathurst, will look at the policy objectives and effectiveness of Section 93Z of the Crimes Act, which deals with incitements of violence based on religion and race. But the Faith Affairs Council wasn't consulted. It provides independent advice to the New South Wales government on issues relating to religious diversity. The review comes after the government passed laws enabling New South Wales Police to launch prosecutions without approval from the Director of Public Prosecutions. Here's Bilal Raouf again.
The majority of the Faith Affairs Council at the time said, well, look, this is the first we've heard of it, and can we have a bit more time to understand it? And can there be a broader review in the new year rather than this rushed step, which seems to be certainly from our perspective, ineffective. And that turned out to be the case. And that's why now there seems to be a rushed call to conduct a review.
He says the Australian National Imams Council wants more time and consultation.
There is a need for a review. Clearly, the provision isn't working, but we need some time to see now how it will be understood and applied by the police so that there can be some practical understanding of the provision in the new landscape. And secondly, why isn't it being done by the Law Reform Commission?
New South Wales Premier Chris Minns says there's demand for more urgent action.
I think that there was some community concern that the reviews that the government has been undertaking, particularly when it comes to law issues, take an inordinate amount of time. And if there are changes to the legislation that we can bring in a shorter period of time, then that would be welcomed. I did make a decision, however, to ask Mr. Tom Bathurst to conduct the review. People would know that he is also the chair of the Law Reform Commission in New South Wales. So I think we got the balance right.
And he rejected claims he's shown little support to the Islamic diaspora.
South Korea's exports of kimchi, the fermented vegetable side dish, set a new record last year amid the rising popularity of all things Korean. They rose to 44,000 tonnes, an annual increase of more than 7%. The mixture of salted cabbage with radish, carrots and seasonings already had a big fan base across East Asia, but sales have also been going up elsewhere. More now from the BBC's Stephanie Prentice.
If we had to summarise it in one word, probably visibility. So there are more Korean films, TV dramas, bands and celebrities represented globally now, leading to a rise of interest in Korean culture. On YouTube, you can see videos of K-pop band BTS making kimchi with differing results.
제가 초등학교 때 5년 동안 김치를 담근 전적이 있습니다.
Those videos have hundreds of thousands of views each, and the reach of kimchi is also easy to see in this latest data. So traditionally, kimchi was exported to other East Asian countries primarily, whereas today, the US, the UK and the Netherlands are in the top 5 buyers. And in total, exports of kimchi came to around $150 million in 2023. Quite surprising for a dish that some saw as difficult for Western palates to adapt to. It's sort of tangy and spicy. Now, the Korean Ministry of Agriculture, they compiled the data. They also said that exports are up more than 50% since 2015, so that's a fast trajectory. In a statement, it said this was mainly due to the increased popularity of K content. Now, another big factor is that once kimchi got onto people's radars, its health properties were noticed. The fermented quality is said to improve gut health, so it's also seen as riding the wellness and well-being wave as well.
OK, we're dedicating this next story to our 2 listeners in Hamilton and got in touch about the temperature there, and this may make them a little bit jealous. A Canadian man took advantage of the recent extreme cold to create some extremely weird frozen food. Now, you won't find these noodles on any menu. CNN's Jenny Moose reports.
When it's 40 or 50 degrees below zero, you can't blame a guy for taking boiling water and blowing off a little steam, watching it instantly turn into snow and ice. But photographer Joe Chawanik of Alberta, Canada, got a kick out of seeing what other people did. How cold is it? Cold enough to use a banana to pound a nail. Cold enough to beat a frozen shirt like a drum. To turn jeans into a battering ram. So Joe decided to do his own game of, you froze your what off?
The next one was the plate of ramen noodles.
In 60 seconds, the boiled noodles were frozen stiff.
And frozen in time. The Frozen in Time series, I guess I'm calling it.
The next experiment involved placing an egg on a couple of straws and cracking it open. Forget hard-boiled, we're talking frozen solid.
My neighbors were looking out the window and thought I was crazy.
And finally, there was something charming, make that Charmin, about what the severe cold did to toilet paper.
People should make the best of the conditions they're in.
But don't try using it, or you will truly freeze your butt off. In the immortal words of Annie Lennox, cold, cold.
Yeah, who's complaining about the heat now? Now, ko te kaupapa tūtahi pōpō tomorrow. Tune in from 5 a.m. for First Up. They're speaking to Finance Minister Nicola Willis and also the Surf Lifesaving Boss for an update on the season. See you then.
RNZ News headlines at 6:30. I'm Todd Zahner. The Commerce Commission says it's investigating the 2 big supermarket chains, Woolworths and Foodstuffs, to see whether certain pricing and promotional practices comply with the Fair Trading Act. An Auckland Council park specialist says speed limits are regularly ignored at Muriwai Beach, scene of a fatal crash yesterday. Stephen Bell told Checkpoint central government could help by enforcing a national set of